So what lurks beneath the surface of this Queensland shooting sovereign citizen narrative? I'm going to present you with a very interesting web. So bear with me. Bullshit. Former magistrate slams sovereign citizens. A former magistrate who heard the arguments of hundreds of sovereign citizens during his time says not one ever held up. I'm not sure why hundreds is in quotation marks there, meaning it's not literal. Anyway, this is by Jack Evans, January 12th, 2023. I'll put a link to the article if you want to go reading. So, former magistrate David Halpern heard the arguments of hundreds of sovereign citizens during his time in the Australian court system, but not one ever held up. Now, Dean of Law at Southern Cross University, it's his well-researched understanding that a sovereign citizen has never successfully proven why they are immune from the rule of law in an Australian court. But that hasn't stopped a significant number, even in recent days, from trying. I think it's pretty sad, really, that people are so sucked into what is so blatantly and obviously illogical and non-legal. Professor Halpern told news.com.au, "As a magistrate, I dealt with literally hundreds of these people who would come to court and claim all sorts of bizarre rights apply to them." And we see him here. Professor David Halpern, Dean of Law at Southern Cross University, saw his fair share of sovereign citizens during his time as a magistrate. Picture Glenn Hampson. How thoughtful he looks there. At the very heart of it is that they see themselves as somehow special, and that the laws that apply to everyone else don't apply to them, because they have this specialized legal knowledge that means that they don't have to comply with the laws. And it's utter complete garbage. According to the legal veteran, there is not a single reported decision of any Australian court that has upheld such claims. That's interesting. News.com.au contacted Professor Halpern in the wake of several recent sovereign citizen cases to gauge his thoughts on why the trend remains prominent despite such dismal court outcomes. One recent example involved a woman who recorded an interaction with New South Wales police on a country road where she claimed she did not need a driver's license or number plate as she was going sovereign. Another South Australian man recently filmed himself refusing to provide police with his driver's license at a traffic stop. Police, in that instance, were forced to smash the driver's window and drag him from the vehicle. Yes, be afraid, because the policy enforcers will smash your shit. A sovereign citizen was recently dragged from his car after police smashed the window to get to him. Picture from YouTube. Judges don't look kindly upon sovereign citizens. Professor Halpern said such a mindset does little good for the sovereign citizens on their day in court. When will these poor fools learn? He said there are cases when judges would show leniency, perhaps invoking Section 10, which allows a court to find one guilty of an offence but discharged the matter without recording a conviction. There are cases where, after hearing and feeling sorry for these poor, pathetic souls, the courts have said, "Look, you seem to have woken up, and now you're not applying this moronic thing," Professor Halpern explained. "If it's a low-level offence, we'll give you a chance and not record a conviction. But that's not a win, that's a finding of guilt." Yes, all-powerful magistrate, David Halpern. Though often such behaviour provokes a harsher sentence, one of the things that magistrates take into account in sentencing is remorse. And a lot of these people are totally remorseless, he continued. Often they will be sentenced far more harshly than someone who is rational and remorseful and vows to comply with the law in future. Well, what law? And people of the movement can be dangerous, on the edge of extreme violence. Queensland cop killers Nathaniel Garrett and Stacey Train have been linked to the sovereign citizen movement through numerous online forums and YouTube videos. Professor Halpern said it wasn't uncommon to hear such violent, anti-police rhetoric as theirs in court. The Trains, in brackets, are not the first violent criminals who appear to have found their motivation, or at least support, in the sovereign citizen movement, he said. So they appear to have found their motivation. It's interesting. I have seen a range of people, including people who threaten to kill police or to kill magistrates. Queensland cop killers Stacey and Gareth Train were linked to the sovereign citizen movement. Well, when we find out what this movement is, then maybe a link can be established. Until then, I say it's an oxymoron. Some of the sovereign citizen problem proponents are really on the edge of extreme violence. So these people think that they can speak in a way to get a different court outcome than what the magistrates want. But they're also on the edge of extreme violence? Why would they be attending court if they're just going to adopt violence? We saw that with the terrible killing of the police officers. In the case of the Trains, Deakin University terrorism expert Greg Barton told news.com.au that the COVID pandemic had been an accelerant for their dangerous conspiracies, including their obsession with personal sovereignty that had already existed. Maybe something else happened recently that has led to people becoming obsessed with personal sovereignty. In the days after the December shooting, he said the pandemic had brought, here we go, the pandemic had brought people with similar outlandish viewpoints together like never before. Professor Barton said Australia was past the tipping point, with more than half of counter-terrorism measures now focused on battling far-right or conspiracy ideologies. This sentence says so much, doesn't it? We're past the what tipping point? With more than half of counter-terrorism measures now focused on battling far-right or conspiracy ideologies. Why are counter-terrorist measures? Is it because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy? If they're focusing or fixated, more than half of their counter-terrorism forces on these people. This has nothing to do with what these people are doing. If this was such a problem, then these stories would be in the news every day, but they're not. They've got to manufacture them. He added that threats were likely to manifest as lone acts, which could nevertheless be of a very large scale of devastation. So, again, these are lone acts, but we're going to link them together. So we separate, individualize, so they don't stand as people, but they're lone. But then we group them together in our, at our discretion. It's at our discretion whether you're alone or you're part of a movement. But we'll judge you. We'll try you alone. We have bollards everywhere, and we take care with public gatherings, but we're still vulnerable from a policing point of view, he said. A self-fulfilling cult. It's just projection at every turn. Professor Halpern did not mince his words, likening the movement to a cult. I would really describe it as a cult, he said. People seem to get sucked into beliefs that no rational thinking person could hold. And it's not that they're stupid or that they're ill-educated. And here we see him looking smug as hell. Professor Halpern says he has seldom talked a sovereign citizen out of their beliefs. What's with the talking out of beliefs? Belief is the problem, it seems. They just seem to get sucked into the whole vision that they are special, that the laws don't apply to them, and that there's a sneaky way of avoiding things like registration and being licensed and having to vote and all of those other things. Yes, pay up, Ward, pay up. We own you. It's not out of the realm of possibility that a minor, self-induced, unpleasant interaction with police or the courts could perpetuate anti-police or anti-government views. Again, this anti-police, anti-government. It doesn't specify anything. It just puts people in a camp. I think it's self-fulfilling, Professor Halpern said. They seem to be, as a general rule, remorseless and stubborn, and they can't have their mind changed. Why do you need to change it? I mean, I've argued with them personally and obviously in court regularly, where I would try to get them to see sense. Get them to see sense. Yes, you are owned. You are property of the state. In most cases, I was entirely unsuccessful. First, they would come in for not having a license, and that would lead to disqualification of their ability to drive. I wouldn't say that would lead to disqualification of their ability to drive. They'd be quite able to drive. Disqualification of their license. And then they'd come in for driving while disqualified, which is a far more serious offence. Then, once you get them there, the second or third time like that, well, you've run out of sentencing options. They're clearly not going to comply. In the end, a lot of those people would go to jail. I know my rights. Some of the arguments he has come across are bizarre. They say things like, I'm not the corporate person named. They demand to see the authority of the judicial officer, the Australia Act and the Magna Carta means that we're not really magistrates, Professor Halpern said. And this photo I find quite interesting. You may be familiar with it. I saw this on one of the news articles about Uakiskonen. So this is a man supposedly arrested or detained at Australia Day 2020. So we have a hint as to what's under the surface here. There are many contributing factors and even international influences that promote the sovereign citizen movement. Picture John Granger. As I say, these arguments have never held any weight or succeeded in any court. As for a source of such beliefs, Professor Halpern understands there are many. How Aussies are led astray. In the case of the recent examples of Australians trying to escape their traffic infringements, Professor Halpern alerted news.com.au to several websites, which won't be named, which offer advice on avoiding fines or a day in court. One charges an $87 fee for a booklet which claims to be able to get you out of a ticket or worse. Another claims speeding fines, parking fines, red light camera fines, infringement notices, expiation notices, failure to vote fine, failure to register dog fines, among a raft of others, are completely illegal, offering constitutional advice on a range of issues. There are a number of websites where people pay for so-called defense kits that enable them to beat speeding, registration, all sorts of charges based on their sovereign citizen rights or their pseudo-legal rights, Professor Halpern explains. Frankly, I'm surprised that the ACCC, law societies around the country, haven't really cracked down on those people because they're purporting to provide legal advice to people and they're taking people's money. It's not them who are going to jail. It's not them who are getting their windows smashed. It's the police that are smashing windows. They claim that there are all these decisions, all these cases that they have won. I've looked into every single one of those cases and they claim have resulted in victory. The lists of so-called successes are all bullshit. The consumer watchdog says it does not enforce the accuracy of the internet. It's huge in America. Other sources include an international influence, particularly an American one, where Professor Halpern said the movement is huge. In America, it's definitely a right-wing, southern, white movement. And in Australia, I think you could generally say the same, that it's a southern, right-wing, white movement. Incidentally, it was revealed that cop killers Gareth and Stacey Train had been linked to a far-right fundamental Christian from Arizona known to them as Don, who holds extreme views of personal sovereignty. Oh, and doesn't he look scary? Videos by Don, some of which mention Gareth and Stacey, detested social credit systems, the COVID-19 vaccine and the media, often sharing themes of a hatred towards police and government. This is fascinating. Videos by Don, some of which mention Gareth and Stacey, detested social credit systems. I didn't think we had any social credit systems for them to detest. Isn't this just conspiracy theory? the COVID-19 vaccine and the media, often sharing themes of a hatred towards police and government, anti-hatred, anti-government believer, ad hominem. In an email to news.com.au, Don revealed Gareth and Stacey turned down an invitation to relocate to the US before they carried out a deadly ambush on Queensland police officers. Yes, so they had an invitation to relocate to the US, but they decided that they would prefer to ambush police that they had no way of knowing were coming onto their property. Yeah, that all checks out. I asked the trains. Okay, so again, this is David Halpern. I asked the trains to abandon the hell. Oh no, sorry. This is the Don. I asked the trains to abandon the hell that Australia has become and relocate to America. They chose to weather the storm of tyranny, inundating their homeland, and to fight against it, he wrote. No reference as to where he wrote it. So, this is interesting. Who is David Halpern? Well, it turns out this professor, is the magistrate that sent Stephen Spiers to jail for 3 months for recording this court audio. And just before I play it, I just want to mention that as much as we can see the propaganda, we can see what these sorts of stories are trying to do in terms of manipulating your belief. You cannot challenge the system. I do think that there is a lot of material out there now where people are half informed and they know a few things and they think they know how to, no, I wouldn't say beat the system, but challenge it and win. I don't know that anybody wins, but as you listen to this, I'm sure you'll see that this is qualitatively beyond different to anything else that you'll see or hear in terms of people challenging the court system. It's not just a matter of learning a few fancy terms. Anyway, enjoy.
Master Spiers to you, sir. And may I address I'd like to address the clerk of the court before you go anywhere.
You don't have the right to address the
Don't have the right, do I?
You appear today charged with some offences. What do you wish to do about those?
I'd like to, first of all, I'd like to submit my person into the court. I surrender the citizenship into the court. I'd secondly like to notify the magistrate that I stand on the sea with a first birth certificate, and I'd also like to stand on the land with a second birth certificate. Hence, I like to make point to the Crown on the bottom here. So now that I've surrendered my citizenship to the court, I'd like to advise you that you may be walking into a trust, days on tort. I can also bring a tort of defamation on this court. I'd also like to make the court aware that there is a commercial lien against this magistrate's court. Your name may not be on it, sir.
Commercial lien.
A commercial lien, right? I have 6 magistrates on this lien. Before you address this court, sir, you have something to address before you. You have no right to be where you are. Right? I'd like some ID, sir. I have my own birth certificate to be on the land. I have my own birth certificate to be on the sea. I surrender my citizenship to the court. Now I ask you, before you start this case, where's your ID, sir? There's no bail, Your Honour. Or are you, Your Honour? Where is your ID, sir? Your court was asked for ID in March. It is now November. Are you able to provide me with ID to give you authority to sit on that bench?
Are said to have occurred in October. Why are we talking about March, Mr. Spiers?
A different case, sir.
Let's not worry about different cases.
Well, no, let's worry about what this says here, right here, Your Honour. This here, this which asks your magistrate's court for the legitimacy to be here.
Is this a bail was granted over the phone?
Excuse me? I was told in the court hearing last time when I was arrested no bail would be set and I was asked to leave through the front door. And now you're telling me bail is set. I was also told in the last hearing that I was supposed to be here at 2 o'clock. I come in this morning at 9:30 to submit paperwork to be told I'm here at 10 o'clock. Are you trying to withhold me from this court because of this paperwork, sir?
Mr. Spiers, be pleased to make your way till 2. We'll do that. Thank you.
Oh, so now we're going to excuse the matter. You haven't even addressed this yet. How can you enter this court?
Are you complaining that we're dealing with you now rather than 2 o'clock?
No, I'm complaining that you have no ID and no right to be where you're sitting. And I would like you to prove me with ID to show me that you have the lawful right to be where you're sitting before you even progress any further. You have a motion before this court. It's been before this court since March, and I will not stand down over this. You have a legal and lawful obligation to rebut these claims. These claims went to your Chief Magistrate in March. Your failure to do so gives you no right to even open your mouth right now. Right? The clerk of the court can address this. You have no right to be there. Right? With this, I will now assign this over to the police prosecutor as trustee of this person. You still have this to address. Your legitimacy to be where you are. Are you willing to come up to me with a writ of commission, an oath, a bond? Who did you sign oath to? Queen Elizabeth II? Are you in usury of my services? Are you the usufructuary? Are you doing a trustees-on tort here? It's a very simple thing. You asked me for ID. You asked me for ID. Before you go any further, bring out your ID, sir. Where is your oath? Where is your bond? Do you have a right to be behind that bench, sir? And I am very serious here, sir. Do you have a right to be behind that bench right now? Are you a loyal Crown subject? Are you a loyal subject to Her Majesty the Queen? Who do you serve? What master do you serve? What Crown coat of arms do you sit under?
Mr. Spiers, are you defending?
I enter no plea yet, and you have no right to enter this case until you prove me with ID. How dare you even step into this matter and ask me where I stand when you have no standing yourself, Your Honour? Well, I shouldn't even be calling you Your Honour because you don't have that right. I would like to see the paperwork first. Where is your ID? Right, we get back to this 60-page document served to your Chief Magistrate asking you for this fact back in March. right? And I do this for everybody in this room, because if you have no right to be there, you have no right to try any of these people, right? That's what this is. I stand on the land, juste jure et solum natural. I stand on the land, not on the sea. Right? You can take your Roman Curia.
We'll treat your cases as being defended.
No, you will not. How dare you enter? How dare you enter a plea? How dare you enter anything in this case until you prove the ID? Do not carry on. Do not carry on.
2014 at 10 a.m. for the contest mentioned.
How dare you? This case was ordered dismissed the day after, and you're carrying on. You will not prove your ID to me. You will not do anything of the sort, yet you will carry on.
6th of January 2014.
Enjoy it, because I won't be there, sir. You have no right to be behind the bench. When am I going to get your ID, sir? So you can forcibly remove me now. See you later. Nothing against you guys.
So, what's below the surface? We have a magistrate just coming out now, linking the Queensland shooting to this dangerous sovereign citizen movement. Desecrating a people's flag, bringing in, again with this nonsensical American link to a sovereign citizen movement. And it turns out that this magistrate is the one that sent Stephen Spiers to jail. Stephen Spiers mentioned extensively in the State of New South Wales versus Uakiskonen Supreme Court, New South Wales Supreme Court document by Justice Julia Lonergan. So everybody gets sucked into this cult, these beliefs where no one is successful. No one is successful against the court, against the state. But we have on New South Wales Supreme Court record a curial right. The United Kingdom of Australia is not a terrorist organisation. A curial right cannot be labelled as terrorist, no matter how uncomfortable those threatened by it might find it. Stephen Spiers mentioned extensively in this document. And it just happens now, linking Australia Day 2020, desecrating the consecrated flag of the United Kingdom of Australia, the 1901 Federal Red Ensign. This magistrate just happens to be essentially writing this article, well, it's based almost entirely off of his quotes. Is it because certain people are threatened of their crimes being exposed, namely international war crimes? Rule 92, international humanitarian law, violations, forced medical procedures, torture. Is that what the threat is? Is this a response? When you listen to that audio of Steve speaking with the magistrate, it should hit home that this isn't something that we can just listen to a few podcasts and then go into court and rule the roost. It's not going to happen like that. But this man has walked the walk, Stephen I'm talking about, and he wishes to bring a case to the Human Rights Commission and then ultimately, or to the High Court, as high as it needs to go to hold war criminals to account. So I'll put the link if you wish to contribute to that case to our barrister, Stephen Spiers, then please consider supporting this. This is not a game. This is real life. This is a man along with Ewa have paid a price to be able to put us on the world stage. So if you want to see that, then consider contributing and stay tuned.